All right, so this is the improved sway bar clamp. The other one is this style here, which goes around this section, and there's a little hammer piece that fits and basically clamps these two bits together. It doesn't work very well. There's the piece right there, and that comes together and sort of attaches the two pieces. It really doesn't work very well, and I don't know, I don't think it's a very solid way of doing it. Now, having said that, the car has been around since the early 50s, so whatever they're doing kind of works, but the sway bar wasn't introduced till the 60s, so it's a relatively new thing by this point. So, that aside, I've got this one in place, I'll put these ones in, and then the sway bar is done, and that's tick another one off my list. So these are those upgraded sway bar mounts I was talking about. They're a far, far easier thing to install than the other type, which is like a horseshoe with a retaining clip on the bottom. These ones here, you just simply slide them over. They're like those really expensive hose clamps, just quite a bit thicker. They work great. So I'm gonna reserve all my thoughts on these until I've actually driven the car and see how much they squeak and that. But so far, just based on how they went in, I'm pretty impressed with them. We are gonna have some problems up here, I think, when the vehicle is on the road. It may squeak a little bit. It looks like we may have some interference between the sway bar and that piece there. I'm not sure how that's going to check out yet, but I'm hopeful that once the car is down and it's bearing weight on the wheels, that interference there will open up and we won't have as much of a chance of it rubbing. Again, up here, I've also gone over and all the bolts have been tightened, and anything that's been torqued has got its little mark on there. So just a little detail I did to make sure. That way I don't have to worry if I haven't tightened a bolt up, or if quickly, just at a quick glance, I can tell that all the bolts are in the right spot and all the nuts are in the right spot, and they've all been torqued appropriately. So I'm going to do that alignment job again, like I did before. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to strap those 2 pieces of steel onto the rotors and just eyeball it a bit, because now that it's narrowed, all the tolerances are a little bit out, of course, and I have all brand new steering components, so that is going to require another alignment. I eyeballed it before. It feels like I got it close, but I think there's more room to adjust it. Now, the one thing I will say is, because Volkswagen suspensions on the front are very linear, the way these things are worked out, they don't have A-arms or ball joints like your conventional cars do. This entire suspension literally goes up and down. Like it does this. It doesn't bend out, or it doesn't compress in and deform as much as other cars do. So it being very linear, weight on it or weight not on it shouldn't make much of a difference for an eyeballed alignment job. I mean, of course, once we get it on the alignment machine, put the weight in it, it'll obviously behave differently, but getting it close enough we could drive it there like this is gonna be more than adequate to get us there. Well, how about that? I'm a 1/16 of an inch off by eyeballing it. I got good eyeballs. All right, everyone, so here we are under the frunk of our 65 Beetle. Back in the early 60s, up until the late 60s, I guess, all Volkswagen vehicles, that's Porsches, Volkswagens, Audis, and all those type of vehicles, use very similar wiring. So what they've done is rather than use relays, which are a relatively newer technology, they use actual large diameter wire, large gauge wire, sorry. Like this wire here, for example, is actually the wire that goes to the starter. So they would run large amperage loads to the switches, and the switches would actually be the switch for the device that you were turning on and off. Later versions of Volkswagens, and in all cars for that matter, use relays, these guys right here, which is essentially a remote switch. So you would have a power source and a ground near the actual device you're turning on and off, and then the relay would act as a switch. So when you activated the switch in your dashboard, it would use smaller gauge wire and activate the switch somewhere else in the vehicle, lessening the amount of wire you have to run around the vehicle, larger diameter gauge wire, but making it so that's a much safer way of moving electricity around the car. And it's a less expensive way of doing it because you're not running a very expensive large gauge wire. And it makes for a much more compact wiring system underneath the dashboard. This car here, not a big deal because your dashboard is literally right there. It's one little piece of metal away, and this is all just living in the frunk area. So what I'm gonna do, we've got a 12-volt system in the car now, and we've got a 6-volt wiper. I can either gut the wiper motor and put new internals in it, or I can use this thing here, which is a step down. So this takes the voltage from 12 volts, reduces it down to 6. So this wiper motor doesn't even know there's been a difference. And that fits in line in this wire here, which is the actual power wire for that system. So I'm just gonna make a cut in there, add this piece in and solder it into place. And then we'll find a nice neat place to attach this step down resistor.